What happens when society is more interested in creating coping narratives in reaction to violent crime, rather than addressing the specific factors that facilitate it? Another summer of street violence, looting and criminality in our major cities is already underway. But don't worry, because the authorities are well on top of it. At least they're on top of managing the narrative. A 75-year-old woman leaving Macy's Herald Square was confronted by a shirtless attacker who shoved her to the ground and repeatedly kicked her before getting away. Oh yes, the scourge of the shirtless attackers. Shirtless attackers could be here, he thought. I hate shirtless attackers. As California attempts to pass a bill that would help looters and shoplifters by preventing store employees from stopping them, a group of non-shirtless attackers aren't waiting for permission as they ransacked a Fendi's and stole $70,000 worth of designer handbags. Wow, wonder why downtown is now a shit-covered ghost town. Asian American New Yorker females are living in fear. I don't feel like anywhere is safe for me, said Yumi Lin, 27, Chinese American woman who's lived in New York City for over 6 years. I feel very suffocated. Similar story in Seattle, where a pregnant 34-year-old Ina Kwon was shot in the head 4 times while sat in a vehicle at a stoplight.
Stranger opens fire on a pregnant woman and her husband sitting in their car. This happened out of nowhere with no provocation yesterday morning in downtown Seattle.
Killer Cordell Morris Gooseby ran up and shot Kwon and her husband in the head for no reason whatsoever. Police say he had mental health issues. Gooseby was out on the streets despite a 2017 felony conviction for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. The couple's friend Michael Hoyle rightly said, "You can't prevent this, not unless there's a policy change. I'm angry and there needs to be action." In Seattle, even the 8-year-old kids aren't safe.
Inside this blue Mustang, an 8-year-old boy from Auburn was shot Monday evening. Kent police say he was in the car with his mother, a toddler, and a baby when bullets pierced through the car.
Emboldened by increasingly lax sentencing, facilitated by demoralized and defunded police departments, mentally deranged lunatics are running riot in major cities, feverishly targeting innocent people. So thank God for the brave Good Samaritans who risked their lives trying to stop them. And how do we treat them? In many cases, worse than the criminals. Former Marine Daniel Perry, thanked at the time by fellow passengers for subduing a man who was making violent threats and acting erratically towards them, demonized after by the mob and the media as a white supremacist, charged with second-degree manslaughter for trying to protect the public from a madman with 42 prior arrests.
I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. The 3 main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm gonna kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still.
They want him locked up for 15 years. They denounced Perry's actions as white vigilantism. Really? And how about Jordan Williams? An ex-con was aggressively menacing people on a Brooklyn train before he punched Williams's girlfriend square in the face. Engaged in a physical struggle with the con and fighting for his life, Williams stabbed him. He's now charged with manslaughter and possession of a criminal weapon. Was that white vigilantism? Should Penny and Williams have behaved like several people on the scene of the horrific attack in Annecy, who stood by as passive observers, doing nothing while an unhinged lunatic was literally stabbing babies? Is this how they want us all to behave? Learned helplessness like pacified, gelded cowards. Even more afraid of what the legal system will do to us than the armed attacker if we try to protect the innocent. We'll come back and dig further into this after a word from the sponsor of this video. Well, it's a debate that has raged since the dawn of mankind. Well, not quite since then, but it is a debate that's raged. Boxers or briefs? More support or more breathability for your meat and 2 veg? Well, the debate is over and sheath underwear has won the argument. Boom. Welcome to the holy grail of underwear. There's nothing worse than a sweaty, clammy ball sack. Sheath prevents all that by using a modern ergonomic design intended to prevent skin-on-skin contact for long durations, which can build up heat and sweat. Basically speaking, your old chaps aren't going to be sticking to your leg, which is gross. That's because Sheath has 2 individual compartments to keep everything down there separate and cool and comfortable. Less chafing, less readjusting, less stink. Keep the boys safely secured in the barracks without them smelling like Tyson Fury after 12 rounds. They were invented by a US Army veteran who came up with the idea during his second tour of Iraq, where, in case you didn't know, it's hot as hell and his boys needed to breathe. He's basically the Nikola Tesla of underwear. You want to stay cool, calm and collected, and that applies to your boys downstairs too. So So click the link below and use the code PrisonPlanet at checkout, or go to sheathunderwear.com/prisonplanet for 20% off. Do your balls a favour, they will thank you. And so will your dad, because don't forget, it's Father's Day coming up soon. That's sheathunderwear.com/prisonplanet, or click the link below and use the code PrisonPlanet for 20% off. And don't forget, without my sponsors, I can't do what I do. Simple as that. They support me, so please make the effort to support them. Now back to the video. In the UK, the streets of a major city once again exploded into violence when two 19-year-old students were stabbed to death by a deranged killer, who then went on to kill another person before injuring 3 others by ramming into them with a vehicle. The West African migrant responsible for the atrocity had a history of violence, but was allowed into the country because of his Portuguese dual citizenship. Authorities have yet to reveal any potential motive, and the mental health line has already been trotted out as a narrative band-aid, presumably to avoid having to address the elephant in the living room once again. Family members of the victims spoke at a public vigil 2 days after the attack, and many on Twitter noted how the media zeroed in on certain parts of what they said.
This evil person is just that. He is just a person. Please hold no hate that relates to any colour, sex, or religion.
I mean, respect to them, because if my family had been slaughtered by this cretin, I don't think I could contain my seething hatred for him. Media reports are also keen to quote former neighbours of the killer, gushing about him being polite and intelligent. Truly bizarre. In 2019, it was revealed that the British government encouraged a programme of controlled spontaneity after terror attacks. Within hours of an incident, campaigns are swiftly organised with I Heart posters designed and distributed according to the location of the attack, reported Middle East Eye. Plans are also drawn up for people to hand out flowers at the scene of the crime in apparently unprompted gestures of love and support. The purpose of the operations, according to a number of people involved in their creation, is to shape public responses, encouraging individuals to focus on empathy for the victims and a sense of unity with strangers rather than reacting with violence and anger. One of the family members of the victims who wasn't called upon to make a statement at the public vigil was Phil Coates, brother of Ian Coates, who was murdered after the killer stole his van. Instead of calling for love, Coates called for noise and justice, blaming politicians, police and the mainstream media for burying the true reasons behind his brother's death. Coates called out the far left's attempts to deny that open borders and mass immigration is exacerbating the threat of violence, tweeting, "Crypto-Marxist appeasers can just fuck off with your nonsense." Yeah, don't expect him to be appearing on BBC or Sky News anytime soon, because Phil Coates is looking back in anger.
And the silly people sing, don't look back in anger. And the morons sing and sway, don't look back in anger. I can assure you I will look back in anger till the day I die.
He's daring to suggest that no, diversity isn't a strength, and that open borders critically jeopardise public safety, and asserting that fact is infinitely more important than protecting politically correct sacred narratives. Yeah, it's worth being called racist if it saves lives. The morally righteous response is to look back in anger. Should we instead react to spiralling violence on our streets by preaching love and tolerance? Does that really work, or does it merely embolden violent criminals? Does it merely serve as an excuse for politicians, the predator class, to evade responsibility for the policies they've enacted that are causing spiraling violence on our streets? Should we react to violent criminals by refusing to intervene, by allowing them to hurt and kill people, lest we end up like Daniel Perry or Jordan Williams, charged and potentially imprisoned for trying to do the right thing? Because if we don't settle this debate in our favour, if we don't stop protecting violent criminals, facilitating their rampages, and crucifying good Samaritans who oppose them, as a society we're going to slip further into a state of brutalist anarcho-tyranny. Once you entrench the narrative that it's not only permissible, but mandatory for good men and women to do nothing, evil rises in a hurry. And what comes next doesn't even bear thinking about. Get early access to videos, exclusive live streams, and personally DM me. You've seen how much I get demonetized all the time. Well, this is how you support me. By subscribing at pauljosephwatson.locals.com. Please click the link in the description.